Hey, Lauren here. Just a heads up, there is some language in this episode. So, on the podcast, I spoke with Nada, and she's a transformational brain based coach. She helps women to overcome shame so that they can step out into their own power. Wow, this was a conversation. We talked about Nada's journey from depression and working through that and stepping into the sunshine. We talked about different tips and tricks on, how to work through programs that might not be working for you in your brain. We talked about how long it takes for a brain pattern to actually, hold firm in your brain. So many conversations. I hope you're ready for it. It's going to be beautiful. Grab your notebook, grab your pen, grab a coffee or tea, whatever you need to feel comfortable and settle in. This episode's been brought to you by the Raw Spirit team. Growing your business is just the beginning. Too many business owners try to grow their business on their own. They spend countless hours testing out and investing in hundreds of strategies, all with the aim of building their business. Without support, someone helping to guide you and cheering you on, motivation starts to go down. Your passion starts to decrease. You start running out of money and losing faith in your business and yourself. The Raw Spirit team is a supportive community filled with expert programming, up-to-date training, guest experts, mentorship, and like-minded business owners. This isn't another community and another strategy. This is a serious and supportive community of business owners focused on supporting each other and building their business. You are welcome here. My guest today is Nada Ourabah. Nada is a transformational brain-based coach who helps women overcome the shame of feeling different so they can finally voice out and be who they have always been. Nada was raised in a traditional culture, born in Abu Dhabi, and raised by an Algerian family. She was brought up with traditional patriarchal beliefs that limited the expression of her being. When Nada was a teenager, her parents moved to Paris. After finishing her master's degree in marketing and entrepreneurship, Nada worked for the top luxury brands from Cartier, Dior to Celine, traveled, partied, and lived her life to the fullest. Yet, there was a sense of unworthiness, guilt, and loss inside her, which increased each day and led to depression. Nada is joining me today to talk about how she transformed her life, her journey from being an introvert surrounded by self-limiting beliefs to stepping out into the sunshine. And we're going to talk about the nature of the brain's ability to change and create its own reality. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
It makes me emotional reading that, actually. I felt like I had to take a breath to, it's wonderful when you can see somebody's journey, and it's quite something when you can sum it up in a couple of sentences when it's years of hard work and tears and pain and triumph all at one time.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I was listening to what you were saying. I didn't feel like it was me, I was already connected to your voice and what you were saying. And I was like, wow, that's interesting.
I think that's one of the wonderful things about getting older. Sometimes people are like, I would go back to my 20s. I would never go back. The way the person I am now, I had to go through all those ebbs and flows of life to become where I am, much like your journey.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you. I don't need to go back. I don't need to go back to my 20s or my 30s anyway. It's a beautiful story to share, because it's all about sharing in our connection. And as human beings, we need connection. We love connection. And it's the story that we see in our lives that connect to each other. But I'm very willing to know what's the next story is going to be.
Yeah.
So it's not age, it's more how am I going to live my life, the next steps, and share it probably.
I love that. So let's go back a little bit, if we can, to kind of where your journey began. I mean, I read off the top that you were raised by an Algerian family, and it seems to me that there were some challenging perspectives or points of view, that were kind of brought up during your upbringing. Can you talk a
Mm,
little bit about that?
yeah, sure. I was born, so my parents are Algerian, for the ones who don't know, maybe. So Algeria is a country between Morocco and Tunisia. It's quite a traditional patriarchal culture, sorry.
Mm.
Um, I'm going to do it again. It is quite, it's quite a, no, it is a patriarchal traditional culture in Algeria, just like most of, African countries and part of Asia,
Yeah.
where women are not really considered like equal to men.
Yeah.
Um, like when I was raised, I have two brothers, I have an eldest one and a younger one. And for example, brothers were allowed to go out without, asking permission. And by the way, when I hear now in the self-development area, like give yourself permission, it freaks me out because I am so in love with freedom that giving permission means that it means that you're asking permission. And each time I hear I give myself permission or I'm giving you permission, it just cringe a little bit inside of me because
Oh,
it really it was the source of my, let's say, my whole battle in life. Is I'm not here to ask permission to anyone, not even to myself, because we were born free. and
yes.
uh, and it's just allowing to be who you are, allowing to what is, more than giving permission. There's something that blocks me when I hear it. So I just yeah, putting this into parentheses, going back to what I was saying, well, it's
Yeah.
still linked. I always had to ask, can I go to sleep over at my friend? But it's true, you have to ask when you're a kid, but it was always a no. Whenever I was asking for something, it was a no, because girls don't do this. Girls don't go outside alone. Girls
Right.
don't oversleep. Girls don't talk to boys. Girls don't go study. But it's just to prove that they are intellectually, functional, but unproductive, so they can have a high potential, high marital potential.
Right.
It's like Western culture. The way
Wow.
that we are brought up, it's like breeding.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I can see now, hindsight, that my fierce search for freedom was hidden behind all these restrictions. And yeah, I was angry since the beginning. Like, why can't I do what I want to do? Why can't I express myself the way I want to express myself? It was like shush shush. uh, I started with lots of restrictions.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is how my journey started. And it ended up with a depression, because I couldn't express myself even if I had a great position and a great life. But I had that conditioning of, you cannot say what you mean and you cannot express what you really feel deep inside, because I cut myself from connecting my awareness to my emotions. I wouldn't dare to look at my emotions from fear of not knowing how to handle them. So it was blocked for
Right.
many, many years, until depression, showed up and
Yeah.
showed off with tears and questions and things like that. And yeah, there's a moment where I completely exploded, and I was I think I was determined to live or not live, but there was a determination that was controlling everything at some point when I got depressed.
Do you think it's kind of like a higher self that sort of facilitated the depression, which then launched you into a rebirth kind of scenario?
I think it is always hindsight, because in the moment you
Yes,
don't really
always
see
hindsight.
it.
Yes.
But I remember when I was lying down at my shrinks, how do you call this long chair? Divan in French, we say it. It's
Couch.
a long, thank you, couch. So easy, Nada. And while I was lying, I remember saying something, and there was a silence, and she stared at me. I just looked at her, and she stared at me. She said, It was as if she was talking to herself, but she said it out loud and saying, cette force de vie, this fierce of life, this strength of life.
Yeah.
And it hit me because I was really not seeing myself this way when I was more looking at myself in a position of a weak person, of a person who's broken, who needs to be fixed. And I heard her say that, and up until today, it's still here in my head, in my memory, saying that force de vie. So what is this? How can I say it in English? That force de vie is the power of life.
Mm-hmm.
And we can call it higher self. It is something actually that is waking you up.
Yeah. It's like the driver of life. It's like, yeah.
Yes, because I was, at that time I was waking up not knowing, is it going to be my last day or first day? And not even in a dramatic way. It was a neutral, genuine question. Is it going to be the last one? I always remember waking up, putting my feet on the floor, and sitting just for a few seconds and wondering without any expectations. And I guess it was, this higher self that was guiding me. And actually it guided me because, the next steps were absolutely delicious and painful, but it was delicious.
But you had to make that choice, didn't you?
The choice of what?
The choice of deciding to step into the force of life, into the power of life. Or was it a decision that you did make, or did it happen sort of naturally? Because often with depression, I haven't experienced it, but I've know people who have before. And, does it come down to a choice or not? Is it something that's beyond you?
To me, I would say it's something beyond me. Because Nada, I didn't want to live.
Yeah.
What for? I mean, what for?
Yeah.
To please people? To shut up? To not knowing what to think, because all that I wanted to think is the way that people were expecting me to think. What for? I mean, what kind of, can you imagine the load of energy that is? It constricts you. What for? I guess it wasn't my decision, because when I was saying, is it going to be my last day? That was really nada, but there was something else, I was handing myself to something else that I was not even aware about. And I understand, while speaking to you now, I understand when some of the sages say, let life take care of life. Because I, as identity, was not willing to continue this way, and I'd rather die. But something else is taking care of you, apparently. Meeting people, lending your attention on a magazine article, randomly bumping into someone who is telling you that he's going to that place, and you thought about that. You had that idea 1 week before, and here you go. So a random person's talking about a place that you were thinking about, So I guess there is definitely something else, definitely.
It sounds like, in a way, that you didn't decide to change or act out or whatever. It's almost as though you surrendered to life.
Yes, somehow,
and then
yes.
Life, like you said, took care of you. So how did that kind of transition, I guess, sort of happen? Because I'm hearing that, you had a challenging upbringing. It was essentially, from what I've heard from you, going against your innate desires as a woman and as a human, to want to express yourselves in the way that you want to delve into that freedom you get to enjoy, or you enjoy now. And that kind of putting you in sort of a cage, I guess, not to use I'm not trying to use a really intense metaphor, but it seems like that. And then that led to the depression, of which you were contemplating whether or not your days were limited. And so what sort of helped you to kind of step out of that? You mentioned a magazine article or running into a friend. Are they all these small little steps, these nuggets that kind of slowly, breadcrumbs that kind of led your way out of the darkness?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It happened that way, you know. When I was depressed, I had like great position, a boyfriend, career ahead of me, blah 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 blah. But you know, unhappiness just drives you to what is happiness then, you know, to the
Right.
opposite.
Yeah.
And what I did is that actually I gave up everything. I just stopped working. I ditched my boyfriend. I talked openly to my parents. You know, culturally, it's very, very, very difficult to face your parents because you are going to be the embarrassment of, you know, you're going to be the embarrassment of the family. You're going to be the shame of the family. You're going to be, I mean, and I had a childhood trauma that I kept for myself, and all that happened in my 30s.
Mm.
And I just laid everything out, just naked. And what happened afterwards, just I decided to tap into what was the most innocent side of my life and side of my being was the memory of how I was spontaneous when I was a child, you know, that
Mm.
part of, and I said, you know what, F it. I'm going to be me as a child. What did I want to do? You know, I was just talking to myself. What did I want to do when I was a kid? You know, if I had
Yeah.
to, you know, if my fate was to paint, I don't know, buildings, was to braid hair, sorry, was to anything, but I just wanted to have peace. I just wanted to be happy if I had
Yeah.
to stay on this earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I said, hey, what did I want to do? I wanted to be a pastry chef. I wanted to be an actress, you know, whatever was creative apparently. And I went through it, you know, and I healed myself by tapping into what I spontaneously wanted to do when I was a kid, because I was not expecting to be famous. I was not expecting to have money. I was not expecting to be successful. I was just expecting to enjoy it. And this is what, you
Yeah.
know, this is where I started from, you know, that place, that neutral place that was nourishing my soul, that was nourishing my being entirely, inside out, you
That's
know?
so good. That's so good. And we are going to talk in a few minutes about, you know, the brain's ability to change and kind of work through this. And I do want to find out about the work that you do with some of the clients that you have. But before that, you know, how did your parents react to that conversation? Is your relationship with them still good now? Like, it seems as though you've stepped into your power, which didn't seem to be an opportunity for you when you were growing up.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually when I opened up fearlessly that towards my parents, that actually I saw the face of my parents, the real face of my parents. And I think it's good also to, you know, when you're true, the other one is true too, even if it's challenging at the beginning because we
Yeah.
step into the unknown. Then I found out that my father, who was like an authority in my who is an authority in my family and to me, you know, the representation of the male, was
Yeah.
actually, he was here every single moment in my life after that. And I was
Wow.
really not, he was so supportive. When I thought that he would always say no to my career change, to my career choice, my life choices, actually he was there to encourage me. So that was a beautiful gift. I felt
That
supported.
is so great. I love that.
Mm,
I just wanted to know
yeah.
how that story went. So let's go back for a minute because I think you touched on something that's really important. And you talked about basically rekindling the joy of the inner child. Because as adults, you know, we're really conditioned, I think, to take life a lot more seriously than we should. Or I don't like the word should, and I still use it anyway. You know, we take life a lot more seriously than is ideal, I suppose. And I know that I am like that too sometimes, where I work a lot. And even though I love my job, I think I forget to go out there and to laugh more and to, you know, rekindle those parts of my inner child to allow that creativity and love to soar. So, how did you kind of identify that connecting with your inner child was a big part of you stepping into the person that you want to become?
Mm, honestly, I was not thinking strategically. I was really thinking humanly, like what to do. What's the issue now? So it was more. It was really not strategic, and but I found that it was very resourceful to tap into that.
Yeah.
I didn't make any effort. It was very resourceful and actually so relaxing. It's so relaxing. Why do I want to be contracted all the time?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's actually relaxing. And since I was in the F mode, an effort mode,
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting anything from anyone. I don't care, because when I go to sleep, nobody will care if I'm happy or not. So who cares?
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. It's your life. That's right. You can't live it
Yeah,
for other people.
yeah, and
Yeah.
as I say to my clients, you cannot go anywhere else without yourself. So serve yourself first,
Yeah.
not egotistically. But if you want to feel for someone, if you want to feel sympathy for someone, you have to feel sympathy for yourself, because without feeling, you cannot really exchange words. You cannot really exchange your thinking. So maybe
Yeah.
I'm a neurocoach, and I discovered neurocoaching way after discovering the nature of myself, our
Mm.
feelings, our emotions. So how to deal with this. And this is where neuroscience stepped into it. How can I bring this life to the world? Because there is a difference between life and the world. The world is creation,
Mm.
is what we create. We could create, right?
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
life is just, it's beyond us. It's
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite something. And I think that, we're going to step into that conversation now. But, when you're talking about the inner child, it's almost as though, when we were children, we were authentically who we are. And it's through the years and the programming and the conditioning of other people who raised
yeah,
us, of TV programs, of books we
yeah,
read, of mentors, of whatever, that really almost maybe like push those innate desires down, or
yeah.
for some people maybe allowed it to shine. And I think that going back to our almost like our innocent part of us is actually a part for us to reconnect with our actual soul's desire. So it's a really important, it's interesting that you brought it up. I didn't expect you to go there, but I think it's really wonderful that that was an anchor for you.
It was key. It was
Yeah.
key. And as you were saying at the beginning of the interview, of our conversation, I mean, you were talking about how yourself really life takes care of life, because I was not expecting to have this thought of, okay, F it. What did I want to do when I was a child? What I want is actually to be happy. The only thing that I was looking for, one thing, is how can I be happy if I have to live in this world? Because I really did not care if I had to
Yeah.
live or not.
Yeah.
Really, at that point. So
Yeah.
what is it that little small point that will let me stay here? It was, okay, let's see, how can I be happy?
Wow.
And this is the only, no, that was the only place where I found it resourceful.
I love that. All right. So let's get into the big subject now, because it's one of my favorite things to talk about, which is reprogramming the mind. And I'm definitely not an expert on the subject. I remember when I was 18 or so this is 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. I remember I watched the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? Did you ever watch that movie?
No.
Oh, if you Google it, it's on YouTube, the full thing. It's very dated, but it's so wonderful. But that, I'm bringing it up because that was my introduction into understanding that I can change my mind.
Uh-huh.
And that, that sort of planted a seed in me, I guess you could say, that changed my entire life. And I'm not going to go into my story because I want to hear about your story, but it was such a key moment where I recognized that I didn't need to believe everything I thought, and
Mhm.
that I could start the journey of reprogramming. So I want to know about your journey and how that started. Now, obviously, we know you went through a depression, you held on to a lifeline to find a kindle or a spark of joy. You found that spark of joy, but it would appear to me that you still had to go through the work of undoing a lot of thought patterns and beliefs, because just because you're finding your spark of joy to stay on the earth doesn't mean that all that shit's gone away all of a sudden, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, for some people, I mean, for me, nothing is impossible. So there are probably people who had like their memory
For
disappeared
sure, there
sudden.
are some people, I've read about them, but we won't go there, but there are definitely some people.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
everything is possible, but let's say
true.
that the version of my existence
Yeah.
wasn't that. So it actually triggered the process of healing of my trauma and everything. And I didn't start with, with neuroscience. I didn't start with self-development. Actually, it's spirituality that brought me to that path of neuroscience. Is when I realized through the teachings of my teachers that a thought is a thought and it's an energy, but you have to experience it or understand it, whatever end you're starting it with. But I experienced that a thought is a thought. It's not you. It's not your identity. It's just
Yeah.
an identity. It's not
Isn't that
you.
isn't that like a wow moment? I think that sometimes, and I don't know about the listener at home listening to this, but like a thought is just a thought. Yeah, it's not you. Like you
No,
are not the thought.
no.
It's like what?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
all these neural nets are like
yeah.
yep.
Exactly. It's crazy. And I tell my clients I'm like, okay, listen, does a thought think? What? Does a thought think? Yeah, does a thought like pink elephant think, what am I gonna have dinner tonight? Because they're both thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Do they think, you know, do they interthink? No, a thought
No.
is a thought.
Yeah.
And a thought is neutral because it's just neutral and universal, and it belongs to nobody. You give it life. So if
Oh,
a thought is universal and it belongs to no one and it's neutral, what gives it life then? And then you're like,
I
me.
do. Yeah.
I'm
Me.
I'm that power.
Yeah.
I'm that light. I'm shining that thought. So when you unconsciously or consciously, but when you realize that, you're like, fuck, I'm gonna say the word, like,
Yeah. Yeah. You could say fuck on here. It's all good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it's true because we're never taught that. It's like, why did I need to become in my 20s or or like late teens to understand that? That would have changed my whole
Right.
life and yours
Yeah,
too. Everyone you work with and anyone who knows this stuff. We're all going, why the hell didn't I learn this from the moment I could think, like talk?
exactly.
I'm not jaded and I'm not bitter, but I'm just saying why.
I'm just angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just angry, but in a good one.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
good way.
I'm exasperated by it. You know, why isn't this more common knowledge? I mean, I guess it's like people like you and me having these conversations, and then someone at home's got a kid. I don't have a kid, but you know, I have
Mhm.
foster kids sometimes, so I suppose I could help them with that. I mean, that's part of it. But anyway, continue.
That's a great conversation. So once I discovered that, I was like, wow, I am life. And a shift happened. And what is extraordinary with life when it takes you back to the world is that you have that sense of openness, that sense of being in service. Like you understood something like, guys, there is a way to find our individual way in our unity, and that I found it like so beautiful, so beautiful.
Right,
And
right,
this is the sense of service came to me. It's like, okay, because I was open to do whatever. And for me
right.
it was, I want, yeah, I want to help and support whoever I meet on my way, and find the joy that I found. And since I know that our mind is still, our brain is a superb machine, and I understood that our brain has a main place in this body to function in the world, and then we can co-create. Then I started being interested in self-development, which I recently discovered. I was really not into it. I recently discovered,
Yeah.
and through podcasts. And this is
Yeah.
where I met my neurocoach teacher. And she's she's all into neuroscience and brain-based perspective with coaching. And this is where I discovered how the brain functions. And it's quite fascinating around the construction of our neural pathways, and the fact that a neural pathway takes 67 days to be entirely built in your brain as like a highway, like automated, because your brain needs to take energy for survival. So what it does is that when you focus on the same thought, then your neural pathway is, your synapses are getting closer and closer and closer, because a thought is an energy, it's translated in the brain. If we have to translate it in the brain, it's like energy going through synapses, and then they get closer the more you repeat them, and the more your synapses get closer and closer, and then they stick, and then it becomes a neural pathway, and then it goes. And it takes like between 40 and 67 days. So 21 days is like you're halfway between the old habits, the old thinking, and the new one.
Yes.
So you have to go further on to get your new thought being automated by your brain. But you still have the power, that awareness, to know if it suits you or not. You always decide at each moment.
Right. So I just want to recap that for a minute, because for our listener at home, you were giving me a little demonstration with your fingers, but they didn't get to see that. So can we just recap for a minute? Essentially what I'm hearing you say, this is in layman's terms, because I can't say it the way you've done it, but if we were building a road from one side of the street to the other side of the street, basically what you're doing is you're laying little bricks. And as you continue to lay the bricks together, the bricks get tighter and tighter, and they form a structurally sound path or road or whatever to get to the other side. At any point, you can break that road up, you can bust it up, you can start again. But the more that you concentrate on building that road, the stronger and sturdier it's going to be, to the point where it actually forms from one side of the street all the way to the next, a continuous pathway.
Yeah. Totally. And the old habit, which is the old thinking, the old thought, will just they're prune away.
Dissolve.
You can see, it would like prune away, like separate.
Yes. Okay. Separate. Okay. I remember one time I was telling a story. I'm not going to repeat this story because it's embarrassing, and I also just think it's wrong anyway. I remember hearing a story and I thought it was true, and I recalled it to somebody else. And while I told it to them, I realized it wasn't true at all. And I'd listened to it on like some crappy TV show, and it wasn't true. And in the middle of me telling this story, I went, oh, wait a minute, that's not true at all. And so that was almost like an aha moment, where I'm sure like a neural net, broke itself open and stuff like that. But does it kind of happen sometimes that quickly, where you go, wait a minute, that's not true?
No.
I think breaking down thoughts is really a slower process.
No, it's a slower process, except when it's a slower process. It's a slower process. But what you said is very interesting, because of what I really like to put in my coaching. But no, when you have a strong trauma, yes, when you have a very strong trauma, your pathway are going to glue and protect you, because your brain is here to protect you, right?
Right.
It's here we have inherited from our ancestors of the survival mode, that part of our brain. So the main job of your brain is to keep you secure and to keep you familiar.
Right. And
So when
on
you have a big
guard, would you
trauma,
say?
yeah,
Yeah.
and when you get a trauma, like it can be immediate, but otherwise it's like, yeah, 2 months. And but
Wow.
what you're saying here is quite interesting, because for me, one of the things that I found out was quite powerful, and it's always in the simplest ways that is the most powerful. It's
Yeah.
crazy. The more it's simple, the more powerful it is. But the mind wants complicated things. It wants to achieve things. It wants to own things, like from the sweat of the forehead, which is
Right.
completely stupid. And somehow, I want things simply and easy, and well, whatever it can be easy, I do it easy actually. But anyway, um, what you said, voicing out. You actually were voicing out something that you thought was true, and once you voiced it out, you
Yeah.
consciously, realized that what am I saying right now? This is a lie.
Yeah, you're right. I heard myself say it.
It is always, and this is what I tell my clients: voice it out. If you want to know if it's true, voice it out and hear how you are talking to yourself by voicing out. It doesn't make any sense. Sometimes, when you're having an argument with someone, you voice out something and you feel that, shit, I think I'm saying something stupid now. you know? I think I
Yeah.
said something stupid, but you're so proud that you can go down that road and just dig yourself your own grave,
Yeah. Yeah.
by
But at least you're
defending something
aware.
that you don't even. Hmm?
You're aware of
Sorry.
it. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying. Yeah.
yeah. Is that voicing out brings about like the whole awareness on your thoughts,
Yeah.
and that's why it is important to voice out, because when it's kept inside of you, your mind can tweak anything. It can, how do we say, um, transform, contorsionner. How
Contort.
do
It could contort.
contort? Yeah, yeah. Your mind contorts the reality. Whereas when you voice it out,
Yes.
you're
Yes.
always here present. Your presence is the light of truth. So when you
Yes.
voice it out, you see if it's contorted or not.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so interesting. So when I was 19, I had a lot of body image issues, all right? I hated my body and I had these really negative thoughts in my mind. So I would think things like, I'm disgusting, I'm fat, whatever. I remember I went to a counselor and I said, I'm having these thoughts, but I don't believe them, but I don't know how to stop the thought from happening. So that was for me a big part of where my journey began, with understanding about replacing thoughts. Can we talk
Yeah.
about your journey with that? What you think about that? Did that sound like something that you did? And how did you slowly start to, I guess, reprogram, knowing it's taking 67 days, which I never knew. And now I know to keep up. That's the whole part of like when you build new habits or you want to attract things, right? To keep up with the practice. I love it.
Mhm. Um, uh, how can I, but well, actually, well, how can I change my thought? I actually said, okay, I am a coach, but I want to orient myself into something that is solid.
Mm.
And science is the closest to, let's say, how solid it is, how solid spirituality is to me, how God
Yes.
is. And
It's pretty hard to prove God sometimes, although you look around and the
you
world
cannot
is,
prove it.
yeah.
You cannot
So,
prove
but
it when you
science,
know it.
a lot of people have credit, they give it credibility. Is that kind of what you mean?
Exactly, and it's that we have proofs, through images. Let's say that it this is how it occurs in the brain. It's not
Yeah.
like it's not only supposition or believing, or that gray area where you're not very sure. And I don't want to manipulate myself. I committed myself to be true to myself the most possible, because F it,
Yeah.
because of the it. Who cares
La
but
force
me?
de vivre.
Yeah. And well, this is how I started I was like, okay, I want to know how that brain works, and this is how I enrolled in that program of my neurocoaching teacher. And this is how it started. But I think it's, you know you can learn a lot about neuroscience as you can learn a lot about how to drive a car when you read it or when you listen to it. But if you don't apply it, you will not learn anything really, experientially. The only important, uh, to me, what is important is really how do you experience it. So always feel connected to your feeling, because you can tell thoughts and you can tell a thought, but not feeling it, not agreeing with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You can say, I'm thin, I'm thin, I'm thin, I'm thin. But behind I'm thin, I don't believe it, I don't believe it,
Mm,
I don't believe it.
yeah.
So you have to do one layer down.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
do I not believe it? Because, and you start writing down what is going on. And when you write it down, just voice it out. I'm not kidding. Voicing out is such a powerful tool. And you just voice it out and you see what you think of yourself. And then sometimes you break down into tears. And it's beautiful because there's so much love behind that is waiting for you, that wants to
Mm.
embrace. Really, love is waiting for you when you melt down, when you crack down. And then going from truth will always lead you to healing you and to stand up for the words that you are going to say to yourself, because you're going to love yourself more.
So you're talking about getting to the root cause. It's not
Yes.
that superficial layer that we think, oh, it's the root cause, like I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'm, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Start with I am not enough and question, do I believe it or not? How far do I believe it? And start writing about it.
Mm.
Start saying, how true is it? If it's true, in which way can I prove it factually? You know? And then if it's true, how can I prove it emotionally? And start writing about it. And let yourself be open to any possibility, because you survived up until now. You're still
Yes.
here. There's
Yes.
no reason why you won't be here in a couple of minutes later, you know,
Yeah.
experientially. Of course, we don't know what will happen to
Of
us, if
course.
there's a meteorite who's going to fall down on us. But what I mean is the
Yes.
trust, tap into that trust. If you're here up
Mm.
until now and you survived all those obstacles and challenges, you can still do it. So
Yeah.
it's more like calling to trust
Yeah.
and accepting the unknown and go for it just now.
Yeah.
And then knowing that when you have that base, then you can, I promise you'll be unstoppable, and you will rewire your brain in a way that you are focused only on what you want. And this is
Mm.
what your brain is going to do, is that it will start going to take all the information that you need to achieve and reach your goal. Because there is in your brain, you have that RAS, reticular activating system. And that reticular activating system is a part of your brain that will filter all the informations that are aligned with your beliefs and that are aligned with your values. We have
Right.
so many information, zillions of information coming to our brain, that it cannot contain everything. So it needs to filter those informations that we are receiving.
Right.
So this filter, this RAS, is going to filter what you think and what you value. And therefore, it is important to know what you really want in life. Just as if you had an urge to go to the toilet. This is how focused you need to be. Like nothing
Right.
else matters. When we talk about shiny objects and stuff like this, it means that you don't really have your focus yet aligned. And this is
Right.
very important. This is a very important work to do for your brain, to help you and be in your service. And then you can rewire your brain and tell him what he needs to think, and because I need to reach that goal.
Right. So are you kind of saying that, and I know that you do work with a lot of women who overcome, the feelings of shame so they can be who they are. That's kind of what you're talking about now, is like getting in line with who you want to be with your values. So once you're clear on that, do you then start to do the work to recognize the thoughts that you're running in your mind or the programs that you're running in your mind? You do your exercise where you write it down all the way to the root. And then do you start feeding your brain with positive feelings that feel
Yes.
truthful to you? Like,
Of course, because when you start writing about yourself, about how you feel, and when you start writing about what you feel, what you think of yourself, what proves the opposite, you automatically receive your worth. You automatically accept the opposite of that lie of I'm not smart. You automatically prove to yourself that it's not true. So it's easier
Mm.
to bring in the thought that you desire for yourself and to send the message to your brain.
Yeah, that says this thing we've been running is no longer valid. So I'm going to take 67 days and I'm going to get rid of it.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's like I'm not smart, or I cannot reach that goal, or I'm not a good enough boss, or I'm not a good enough, employee, because I coach women who want to quit their job. Most of them
Yeah.
hate their job and want to truly do what they want to do. And it's like, I can do it, or I don't have the money, or, it's, what was the other thing that I don't have clarity about the next step. I don't have a passion, whatever,
Mm.
and because I'm not smart, I don't have the qualifications. So you start writing down what proves that you have qualifications throughout your life. You have proofs. Your mind is just trying to see. Your mind is just afraid of stepping out of its own comfort zone. It's not even your comfort zone, because you're
Yeah.
so creative, you're so resourceful, so you need
Yeah.
to prove to your brain just to, and your mind just to, guys, this is what happened, you know on a factual way. Guys, this is what happened emotionally, so I'm not going to take that belief, because this is who I am.
Mm.
So if I am not worth quitting my job, or if I am not worth building a business, or if I am not worth being free of judgment, of then factually prove it. Write it down, read it out, emotionally prove it, write it down, and voice it out, and you will naturally find the right thought that suits you, and
Right.
you're going to build your neural path with.
Yes, yes. That I remember that when I went and saw that counselor, she said to me, just say that you love yourself or something. And I'm like, I can't say that. It doesn't feel true in my soul, but I can say I like myself. And that's where I began, kind of like you were talking about, layer upon layer upon layer. You were
Yeah.
you were talking earlier about the brain and almost like our survival instincts that we have. You know how we've kind of, we've got
Hmm.
these brains that are, they're hardwired to, like, look, is there anything going to attack us? We're always sort of on guard. Do you think we have a natural inclination with seeing the negative in things?
Yeah.
Why is that? And can
I
we?
don't know. I
I don't
never
like
found
that.
out. We have 9 times. Can you imagine? We have between 5 and 9. Each time I read, like, around it, it's like 5 or 9 times more ruminations, thoughts, than positive thoughts.
Negative
It's we don't
thoughts, right?
we don't know. Yeah, 5 or 9 times. Can you imagine? Like, naturally, as you were saying, like, naturally.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think, I don't know, if I have to interpret it my own way, I would say maybe because life wants us to, be present, fully present, understand what it means to be fully present. And I
Right.
understood that being fully present really erases the rumination, even if I receive it 9 times, because I realize that it's just the thought and it's not me. So I don't care, because I'm focused on what I want.
Yeah, I think that sometimes, thinking really is what happens to us when we decide to take control. That's where, we get back in the driver's seat of life. And I remember I was reading the book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, which is an awesome book. Have you read that?
No.
It's so good, but it talks a lot about how you need to give your subconscious things to think about.
Uh-huh.
And I think that, if our natural default is to feel negative or feel victim or recall all the bad things we ever said to people that we wish we hadn't, or the things we shoulda, coulda, didn't do,
Yeah.
then essentially we're feeding those and we're building that road over and over and over and over again. Whereas when we take the time to identify, like you're saying, who we want to be and where we want to go, and who we want to grow into, and the service we want to give to the world around us, those people around us, when we can get clear on that, then we can consciously choose to put those thoughts into our brain. But you
Yeah.
do it all the time? Do you have a reminder in your phone to remind you? Like, how
Yeah.
do you do? Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I enjoy it more and more. I really enjoy it. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful feeling. And you're feeling, you have, yeah, the cherry on the cake for the cherry on the cake. Know something. You are living. Tell yourself, be open to that and let it sink in, let it land. You are living the feeling of your thinking in the moment. You were talking about subconscious is memory. It's the memory. It's what didn't what you're going to dig in if you haven't solved the problem that happened in the past. It's time. It's your subconscious is time. It's space. It's memory. It's your emotions, right? And your conscious is not related to time, to space. It's just awareness. Awareness is not time, it's not space, right?
Right.
To know that whatever you are feeling in the moment is just your thought. It's
Yeah.
not about you. And nothing else is impacting your feeling but your thought.
Yes,
Just
and
that.
nothing that happened in the past or will happen in the future can take you away from where you are now.
Yeah, but you have to experience it. You really have to look at it
Yeah.
closer.
Yeah.
Not only intellectually, like, is it true? How true is it? And see, you can check it out anytime during the day. Like when whatever someone is telling you something, you will be triggered. And you're going to say automatically, well, he told me this. Well,
Mm,
apparently it's true for you. Because if it wasn't true, it wouldn't be your thought, but you owned it. And
right.
it's your thought that is giving you that feeling.
So if we're having thoughts in our minds that we don't like, if we're getting, let's say, defensive when people bring things up, if we're getting triggered, are those all opportunities for us to essentially dig deeper, look at the root cause, and work at replacing that with who we want to be and where we want to go?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, what I find, well, this is my own way, when you are very much into your head, it's very difficult to, jump from stair one to stair 10, right?
Yeah.
So when we are in the habit to react, by defending ourselves, well, it never ends up with a very positive result. There's always frustration and rumination and thinking back about that story that happened in the morning, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But what I would encourage, if someone, if someone is asking me, as you're asking me, what I would encourage is bring yourself back to your body first. Feel the sensation.
Mm,
Even if you're not going to get the result that you want in this experience, what you are winning back is yourself by being present in your body and feel the sensations. I remember when I was, starting this journey, I told myself, okay, just the body. Don't worry if it's you. Okay, she's winning, she's whatever, she's getting over you, blah, 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 blah. But connect yourself to your body, feel the sensation, feel the stinking feelings on your body or the heat, on your face or whatever. Just start feeling this. So I was more serving myself in these situations by being present and feeling, getting back
yeah.
into my body so I can acknowledge my presence. And by doing this bit by bit, I could finally rest in my body, listen and answer from a place of being aware of what is happening and not reacting.
Mm,
So that is the first step that I would, advise from someone who is very much into their head, which is a lot of people, honestly,
yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
people, and very much into their head and reacting.
Yeah.
So start with your body, be
Feel the
patient.
emotion.
Yeah, feel the emotion. Don't, and if you can not answer immediately, don't do it. It's okay, it's fine. It's all loving yourself by being present here. This is how love
Mm,
is expressed. in this situation, for example. It's allow it.
Surrender to it, which brings us back to the beginning of our conversation, which was essentially surrendering to life. I think that when we try to argue with what is, or we try to fight, if you're having a thought and it's a thought you don't want, just remember it's just a thought, let it go.
Yeah, let it go. And it doesn't matter if it's just want to stick into your head like just a glue. It's okay. It's okay. I'm good. It's okay. And you can talk to your brain, say, okay, we're good here. I know, but I'm going to do something else this time.
Yeah.
Who's going to judge you here? Nobody. So it all goes back to surrender. And the understanding of surrender becomes more and more, it becomes very generous, very deep, very open.
I love that. Well, we're already basically at our hour. It's really hard to summarize a subject like this in an hour. I think that you did a great job. And I think that there's so many, things to come out of this. I would really like to hear from you. I will put some resources in the show notes for our listener at home about books that I've read on these subjects that really have helped me change my life. One of which is The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, which is amazing. But I would love to know from you, Nada, what you've read, if you've got any resources. This is such a big subject that some people might listen to our conversation and feel like they still don't know how to get started. But I guess, like you said, feel into your emotions, get aware of your thoughts, write down what you're thinking, talk out loud about what you're thinking. And half the time you'll realize that what you're thinking in your head is a bunch of BS. Are there other resources or podcasts, or I know you've got some podcasts. Is there anything that you can kind of direct people to start their journey, as well as maybe look at working with you?
Well, working with me, I have I guess you will put it in the show notes. My Instagram account _live coaching. I have my own podcast, Be Live Podcast. The resources, books, I've read so many books, but I think that, I cannot recommend yet books of self-help books because I haven't read any for the moment.
Well, I'll tell you about 25 at the end of our conversation.
Actually, you know what? I recently ordered and I received it, and I read only the 2 first chapters, The Big Leap.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I've read it.
You read it?
Yeah.
So I started to read it, and I find it quite interesting, very practical. So very, very helpful for a perspective of step-by-step process. But, I read a lot of, I actually was very inspired by autobiographies, but of spiritual characters and spiritual teachers. These are the ones who saved me, to be honest with you. Is really them who saved me. And then my teachers, just like my neurocoaching teacher, who is Dr. Shannon Irvine. You can find her podcast. It's very interesting, very brain-based, oriented, a lot of resources. Who else? But I think, for me is,
I think what you're saying, though, is it's about going out there and exploring your own journey. It's about listening to conversations like what we're having, and it's about honing in on things that really resonate and feel right to you. And, I'm going to say something that I think is just the best. Like, here's the best piece of advice. And someone's going to listen to it and go, I don't agree with that at all. And that's fine, because it's worked for me, and I'm on my own journey, much like you're on your own journey. And so I think the message is about reading. It's about checking out different perspectives. It's about understanding that you're on your own journey, and wherever you are is good.
Yeah. You know what helped me? My best book is My Questions. to be honest with you, the best way to encounter the right platform or the right support is questioning yourself. We never question our beliefs. We never question our thinking. We just take it as, we just take it as popcorn. True. When you're fascinated by what is around you, and you eat that popcorn like you eat the beliefs like popcorn. You don't even question what's in it, and that's the sad thing. Yeah. And this is what I tell my clients: question your belief. Is it true? Question it. Who's going to stop you? Like, if I look around, nobody's going to stop me. I'm stopping myself. I stop myself and let someone maybe yelling at me, and then what? I'll tell him why. I just want to know why. I'm a kid. I tap into that kid who doesn't know and just does whatever it feels right. There's no one rule. It's your life. You've been created in your unique way. Why don't you go taste yourself? For me, that is the most important. Stop reading books. Start living. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, start living. Start taste yourself. Start, fall, get up, whatever. I mean, this is what I hear, but taste yourself, even the pain is tasteful.
Yeah.
Nothing is wasted in this life. Nothing is wasted in this life. When you look back, whatever happened served you beautifully, generously.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say, you know what? Don't read books. Listen to podcasts, because you'll be moving and doing things, but taste yourself, experience yourself, question yourself, and go dig into books when you need an answer that you cannot find in your silence, and
beautiful.
And I would really go for, I don't know. For me, the most important is to go to sages. I loved stories when I was a kid. I love stories about wisdom. I was attracted by wisdom. So I guess this is how it unfolded for me, because I liked it. So there's no way, but maybe what I am sharing is going to inspire you to go for your own taste.
Yeah.
But imitating, listen to yourself, because you have such a beautiful voice. You have such a beautiful way. I am sure about that. I am convinced about that. And when I look at my clients, for me, I really look at them. They're beautiful. They're like fruits to me, juicy fruits. And they don't see it yet, but I'm so touched by when I see them. So I just encourage you to go out, be yourself, taste yourself. If it hurts, feel it. Stand up for yourself. This is how you love yourself, because loving myself is just, perceived from the mind as a result, so you don't know how to do it. But those little actions are proof of that love.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, that's love,
Well said. Thank you so much, Nada, for your wonderful wisdom, your conversation, your vulnerability, your guidance as well. And it was really great to meet you. And I know that you definitely gave people, a different perspective, gave them things to think about. And also, I love that you inspired hope. And that's so important. So thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please do leave us a review where you listen to your podcast and share it with your friends. New episodes every Monday.